kind of marriage where a lot of things went unsaid or unspoken, or did you feel a sense of intimacy and connection that you could ask him anything?
I honestly can tell you that it was every sense a normal marriage, and everything was spoken. And in the middle of the night, if he needed to wake up and tell me and bounce something off me and wake me up and want to talk, or if there was trouble, or
was he having trouble sleeping then?
Yes, he was like a little gnome. I used to tell him he was like a gnome running around the room because it was hard for me to sleep. A lot of times I couldn't sleep either if he wasn't sleeping. So I just hear him piddling, and it was a bit endearing. But then, and I didn't mind it. But he did have a hard time sleeping. Yes.
Did you feel like you were, in many ways, a nurturer, caretaker for him?
Very much. And I really loved that role, and I loved taking care of him. It was the highest point of my life. One of the very highest points of my life was when things were going really well, and he and I were united together, and he and I had an understanding about some of the people and things that could go on around him. And he was with me on those things, and we were a unit. And I could take care of him, and in spite of what some people speculated while I was with him, that I wanted a career or that I was trying to do something, it was absolute BS. I've never been comfortable being front and center, honestly. Don't like attention on me. Loved being next to him and taking care of him. I was on such a high doing that I don't, that it was a very profound time in my life. So it wasn't anything, it was real as far as that goes.
I heard you said to the producers that being with him was some of the highest highs for you, as you just described, and also the lowest lows.
Yes.
What was the lowest low?
The lowest was, again, when I talk about him, I now, in retrospect, want to make very clear that I understand him now more than I ever did. So when I speak about him, I can speak about him with understanding, and it's all good now. For some reason, I don't know what happens when someone passes away, and this is what's come of it, but I've come to have all this love again and understanding for him, and I don't know why it had to take all that to have this happen. That upsets me a bit, but
Because were you angry with him before?
I was angry.
You were angry with him when you left the marriage?
I was very angry. I was so angry because I felt that we were so united, and then at some point he pushed me out.
Why did the marriage end?
There was a very profound point in the marriage when he had to make a decision. Was it the drugs and the sort of vampires, or me? And he pushed me away.
Vampires?
Meaning people that are sort of spiders, vampires.
Sycophant, sucking his blood.
Yeah. Yes.
So you saw that all around him?
Oh, God, yes. Yeah. Yes. And it was...
many people talk about that in stories written about him. He seemed to be drawn to people who would take advantage of him. What was that?
The one thing that correlates with Michael and with my father on this subject is that they had the luxury of creating whatever reality around them they wanted to create. They could have the kinds of people who were going to go with their program or not go with their program. And if they weren't, then they could be disposed of.
It's the reality of being a god in your own world.
Right.
Yeah.
And this is something that I've had way too much experience with on both sides, where I've seen what can go on, and that is...
my way or the highway.
Right. Michael wasn't a bad person because that's how he functioned. He didn't know any better. It wasn't that, I took it very personally, though. I felt I was disposable. And it was the same with my father. Sometimes I sit and I think, there have been times when I've been angry at the people around him. Why didn't you stop him? Why didn't you say something? Well, because if you did, you were out. It's very simple. And he didn't mean
he wasn't the kind
either.
of person, he wasn't, nor your father was, the kind of person who wanted people around him telling them the truth. He wanted to be told what he wanted to hear.
When it's this unusual reality and an ivory tower and this godlike life mixed with an addiction, that's when you get into trouble.